Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Practice Growth Strategies, the podcast that will help you grow your practice. I am excited to be here with you again today, and I'm very excited to be here with my guest, Dan Sullivan. He is a hard-working chiropractor out there to share the message with as many chiropractors, as many people as he possibly can. He's constantly traveling. I talk to him. He's gone every weekend. It's a Saturday morning, and he's found time to sit down with us to be able to record a training that is going to be jam-packed. We're all about cutting out the fluff and giving you just the power-packed information that you need to change your practice. So, Dan, how are you this morning, my friend?
I'm doing awesome, man. It's an honor to be here, and let's rock and roll. Let's give some high value here.
Awesome. Well, I imagine most chiropractors out there know who you are by now. Let's skip the intro and skip your chiropractic story, and let's get right into some meat and potatoes. On you are known for talking about transforming the message from back pain, from aches, pains to function and nervous system and brain. Tell us a little bit about that connection and what your passion is.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so you're sitting out there, you're a doc. I think about this, we all have a desire to take someone from the public. And the reality is, if you ask 100 people in the public what chiropractic is, they're going to say back, neck, and pain, something in that, genre. Now, the problem with that isn't necessarily just that that's what they think. It's that because of that perception that they have in their mind of what it is, they're never going to come to us. They're never going to come to call you. They're going to go by your office and the only thing they're going to think about is that you help bad backs. And so therefore, why would I bring a child? Why would I myself go? They're not thinking about performance. They're not thinking about reaching to peak potential. They're not thinking about nervous system or brain. They're thinking about, and this is and this is somewhat true, but I get a little bit extreme here, but like they're thinking, first of all, they're not thinking of us, but if someone said, hey, what do you think of ABC Chiropractic over there, Dr. Tabor Smith, what do you think of his office? Oh, I'm so glad he's in my town, in my city, because in case I get that bad episode of back pain and the Advil won't do it, and my MD said it's not a major problem, the MRI checked out fine, the orthopedist said there's nothing they can do about it, my massage therapist, worked on it, my husband's massages don't work anymore, and if all that fails, the drugs don't work, I'm so glad he's there, because then I would use him and he would be so valuable to me in my life. That's typical. Somewhere in that is so where we sit here and we're like, my kids have never been had a drug in their life and never had like crazy stuff going because of the principles that we have and this thing called health that we live by. And so it's tough for us to sit here and allow them to have that perception, not because we want to be right or like I just want to change your mind. It's because I want you to have the benefits that I get from many of our patients. So I start there because we all have that struggle. That's the problem. The problem is they think bad backs, bad necks. We think performance and it's for your entire family.
Right.
And but yet there's this abstract thing of trying to get our big idea to them in their minds. And again, in a short period of time, when we also got, we know what sales is like, we know what a run a business is like, we got a short period of time. How do we actually do that and transfer them very quickly into, it's not just about bad backs, it's truly about health, wholeness, happiness, and the nervous system.
Dude, I think you nailed it. I think you've gotten inside his head. Are you hearing an echo?
A little bit, but you're good.
So here's the case. Most of the time when I'm out in the community and I'm networking, and I shake someone's hand and I tell them, and they ask me what I do, and I say I'm a chiropractor, I don't get a whole lot of people saying, oh, I hate chiropractors. You know what I mean? Most of the time I get the people that say that they smile, they say, oh, that's awesome, that's great, I'll have to get a card from you. It's like we're accepted in the community everywhere, but to actually get into most people's head like you have and understand that person that's smiling, shaking my hand, like is happy that he knows me, is saying, I'll put you in this Rolodex for when I need you. And that's probably, I feel like you're spot on with their psychology there.
I love that, Doc, because what it immediately makes me think of, because you're right, there's not usually, and we've kind of gotten past a little bit, especially our generation, We don't have that negative, with all the, medical model and the Wilkes case and all that happened in the 70s, 80s, 90s. We're now kind of have somewhat of a fresh, slate there. But the same time is, again, they, like you said, they put us into that category to where we're just a bad back guy. And so anybody that I know, and so maybe at a network meeting, I think if I ever find somebody that's got bad backs, I'm going to send them to you, or some sort of cosmetic posture problem, right? Which isn't bad, but we know there's, again, let's open up a different market, a different section or genre of the marketplace that they can recognize that they would qualify for our care, and that ultimately we know we can help them. So that, when I think about that, and this is, again, leads us down to it, is like what I would want them to know, right, is that there's new, everybody likes new. It didn't happen 5 years ago. There's a reason why they went to their chiropractor 8 years ago and they didn't hear about this stuff, or 15. It just separates you. Is because when you say new, did you know about the new research? Like what new research? Yeah, the new research. You've probably heard of somebody that's actually gone to chiropractor and got help from some sort of what would be, kind of an unrelated to their back, right? To most people, allergies, asthmas, diabetes, heart problems, right? Immunity. Some of you got pregnant, right? And they all could say, yeah, you know what? I have heard. They've heard of somebody saying, now we know exactly why that happened. And more importantly, we know why that anybody off the street doesn't even have to have back pain, can come in, and based on our assessment, if they have abnormalities in their spinal nervous system, which we could find with our specific testing, they don't just have a back problem, they ultimately have a brain problem. And that's what the best research is now saying. And so what's cool about what I get to do as a chiropractor is I get to see all these different groups of people, from, day-old babies all the way to, 100-year-olds, and help them reach the life that we believe they're destined to live, because they're reaching their potential, and not just, wait until something's sick and covering up with meds. So it lays in, again, the key words being what's new. And I'm telling you guys out there, that is the new research. Like, know that the best research in the world, the best evidence in the world, you could put, I'm speaking at this Congress, this neurology, 14th neurology conference in Chicago this summer. And I'm going to walk in there and I'm going to tell them that the best evidence of the world supports the fact that there's an intimate relationship between the spine and your brain that nobody's talking about, and even the neurologists aren't aware of. They're not bad people. They're just not aware of it. And it explains why we've gotten such great results in 21 years. And now it boils down to, let's make it simple so the public can actually, do something with it.
No, I think that's awesome, because you're shifting somebody's perception from just about the back. And I feel like my patients, they kind of understand that once they start care in my office. Does that make sense? Like,
Yep.
like when they're out there, maybe that person is saying, I'm put you in this Rolodex for when I need you. But once they get in, they get educated, they start care. My families, they come in, they bring their kids. They're not bringing them in for back pain, right? So finally, they've caught on to this perception of chiropractic is more about my, my expression of life, or my taking my life from a level here to a level up here, right? And I appreciate how you can help to take those people who are the 95% of people in our country or in our world that have they just don't have a clue what chiropractic is, and take them and help them to understand it a little bit more.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take a side note to that, because we talk about the research. I'm not going to tell you something to say just because it's a good tagline, or it's like it's a good one-liner, right? Or it's a good script. No, it's what does the research say? That's what boiled down to me. I was speaking about a year ago in Kansas City with Heidi Havoc, who's one of the greatest researchers in our profession right now. And I said, Heidi, wouldn't it make sense? I said, does the research follow this? Because this is where my brain works. I said, I'm a simple guy. I want to take that big kind of research and make it very simplified for patients. I'm not necessarily as concerned about the research, but I want to walk into any room and to be very confident and certain that what I'm saying is true. And so I said, wouldn't it make sense, based on the research, that instead of, when somebody comes in the office, instead of handing them a spine, not that we want to address a spine or show them a spine, but one of the most things that we focus on is we just put a brain in their hand. Literally, we have them open their hands and we put a brain in it, just an anatomical brain that we all learned on in school, right? In anatomy class, a brain, just set it in their hand and say, I know you came in here because you've got a back issue, or you've got some certain, musculoskeletal things that you thought maybe we could help with. And you still maybe think, just like I did at one point, that what we do is about the back, but what we really do is about what's in your hands right now, right? What is that? That's a brain. Yeah, where's it at? In you. Do you have one? Yes, it's in your. Yeah, it's in your skull, right? That most people don't know that your back has a direct relationship with your brain. The health of your back is a direct correlation with the health of your brain. And so when we do an evaluation and analysis and we go thorough with our evaluation, it's because we're concerned about your brain and neurology and your nervous system. And that's what, because here's the thing, Tabor. So to get on that, and her point was, she's like, that's brilliant. She's like, that's exactly what the research says. And we got to stay in our lane, know our philosophy, know that we're not treating or curing anything. And that's a kind of another conversation. But the point is that the research now, whether you do torque release technique, you do network, a soft contact on an S2 tubercle, you do CBP where you're really, very, very, corrective in nature and mechanical, and you mix the mechanical with the nervous system, whether you're a Gonta, it doesn't matter what technique, we all influence the brain. And that's the difference. That's kind of the trek I've been on. I was like, you look at the last few years, I was like, why is it that all techniques get results and very similar results, right? And so that's why. It's because of our influence on the brain, and that's the truth. So the research backs everything up if you start talking about the brain and nervous system rather than just back.
So I follow Grant Cardone, a lot of his trainings, and some of his trainings, he'll say, you need to speak, you need to tell the prospect, what you need to tell them. You need to train them, you need to educate them, but they also want to see it. And I know you're big on the research. Do you give forms to patients? Do you have like the research that's in a flyer, or how do you share the research with a patient?
Well, first off, make it very simple. There's a difference between a chiropractor needing a research, we needing the research, and what that would look like versus a patient. So right. 95% of patients, probably even more, you got the analyticals that sometimes they actually will look at it, and if, for what it's worth, I have that around. But what I like to do is I have a sheet where I have like 5 of the best studies. And it's on one sheet, but it's, let's say, dumbed down and simplified for a patient. So it actually goes through one, just the simple things that they would need to know. We don't want it to degenerate anymore. Chiropractic prevents degeneration. Its influence of the spine on the nervous system and the brain. Why kids need to be adjusted. How its influence is more than just your bad backs, and it's not about pain. And then how it influences, like there's another one that there was no maximum improvement, like chiropractic. The more this 2006 study, the more someone got care, the better they got. It wasn't like ever a plateau. So I've got it, very simplified. But yeah, I mean, that would be my recommendation to anyone is don't try it. And so it may take 1 study, 2 studies, it's like you got to simplify it for a patient and really get them to think about what you want them to know. I'm telling you, there's evidence that supports that. And you can contact me if you're out there, like if you say, this is what I want them to know, I can guide you. And okay, here's 4 studies that's going to prove those 3 things or whatever, because it's out there. We have the evidence. I look at it every week. But to your point, yeah, to Grant Cardone's point, yeah, because that's the thing. Here's kind of the rule of thumb too that I've learned. It's why they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Mm-hmm. The rule of thumb is don't tell me if you can show me. If you can show me what revolutionized the profession of needles, of all things. If you look back, it's like 30 years ago, where there was a new needle that we all now familiar with now, is that the V needle or whatever, when you have it's like it's got a V on the end of it, like that transformed the industry because of how easy it could go in and they could do it right. But they were having a hard time initially getting people to buy into this new needle until they developed this little thing that showed how sharp it was and how easy it was to get in compared to the old needle. And all of a sudden the old needle became obsolete because they showed them, they didn't just tell them.
Yep.
And that's one of the things, again, that I study a lot of, to say, how can we better show this thing and not just tell us? So let me give all your listeners out there I've done this for, if you've seen any video I've ever done, you've seen it in the last, especially in the last year. And that is this. Ask all of your patients. I mean, ask your wife today, ask your spouse, ask anybody in the street. I guarantee you get, and follow me. Would you rather, right? It sounds like a high school party. Would you rather? Would you rather go in a closet, or would you rather go egg a house? Would you rather have a back problem or a brain problem? Would you rather have a back problem or a brain problem? Right. And I asked the guy in Toronto, this guy named Mike, a couple months ago, and he literally said, And this guy had a sequestered disc, was ready for surgery, started getting upper cervical care, got better, and avoided surgery. But he had excruciating back and leg pain. And I said, Mike, as bad as that back and leg pain is, I said, would you rather have had that back pain or a brain problem? And he said, without a shadow of a doubt, I'd rather have the back problem. I'd rather have that back pain that I have, because for some reason, even the nervous system, when we talk about the nervous system, for some reason, the nervous system can be abstract for people, right? Most people say, what runs the body? Well, man, the heart, right? And you tell them the nervous system, they still like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But the reason why it makes sense to them is because of one organ. It's the brain. Nobody wants a brain problem, right? Whether it be the scare of Alzheimer's or MS or Parkinson's, whatever it is, nobody, and I'm not saying that's our point. The point is what we influence with the spine is a brain. And so it's in our lane to make sure would you rather have a back problem or brain problem? It even goes deeper. Would you rather your kids have a back problem or a brain problem? Now you've begun to change the conversation, because now instead of saying, well, I don't think my kid has a back problem, they may be true in the scheme of their own mind. They may not have scoliosis. They may not have some sort of back problem, but would you rather them back problem or brain problem? What they don't know is that back problem, what we call vertebral subluxation, is based on the best evidence.
Dude, I love that. One of the things that it hits me is I have a mastermind group. We were actually talking last night. It's very relevant here, is about how it's hard to create urgency in chiropractic. As you know, because we're always talking about how to increase our conversions, how to take that prospect in through the conversion and make them a patient in your office. And urgency is a huge part of sales, no matter what industry that you're in. And back pain doesn't have the urgency that it needs to be able to have high conversion rates, So it's like you have some low back pain and your patients end up telling you, well, doc, is this care plan still going to be good next week? Can I just go home and think about it? All of these types of things. But what you're saying, and when we're focused on the brain, I mean, think about that. A back problem or a brain problem, which one has extreme urgency and which one is going to be extremely motivational for a patient to start care? So I would even go as far as saying this would increase your conversions, not just because people are understanding it's going to make their life better. It's, focusing on the entire body, but it's creating an urgency that wasn't there before. When they're thinking, I just have a back pain, now I actually may have a brain issue, or my kid, it transforms urgency for your kid. Whereas you're like, my kid might have a spinal problem 20 years from now if I don't get him adjusted today. But if it's a brain problem, it's like instantly, let me get my kid checked. Let me get my kid adjusted,
Yeah. And let me make sure everybody's hearing this clear, because I want to make sure you understand that the subluxation is absolutely influencing their brain in a negative manner. It's not to say, again, that it's causing their, neurodegenerative disease, but is absolutely saying that if you've got a subluxation, it is, there was a study I just went over this week out of 2010 neuropsychology. It was September 2010 neuropsychology, and it showed the cerebellum's influence on emotional, cognitive, and mental health. Without a doubt, directly influences the emotional, and this again, new in the last 10 years of really understanding this connection. So if the cerebellum, which we know influences all mental health, and it's been unequivocal in the chiropractic world, because the cerebellum has such a huge part to play in motor and motor control. So we know that any movement, you be exercise and any movement, posture, influences cerebellum, as does your adjustment significantly. And now that we know the cerebellum's connected so closely with brain and mental health, so to your point, Tabor, when someone says like, I got a care plan in front of me, but they know that sure, they could start next week, but every day their brain, their mental health, their thoughts, their ability to get more work done in a shorter period of time, their ability to have mental clarity, to adapt to the current stress they're under, to perform better, to make more money, to earn more, to get, to get looked at more. See, all that stuff is an absolute when you again start to understand the influence of this, and that's why I love the brain stuff, because I just love how it's irrefutable. And to the point, the reason I did a live video on this yesterday, because the best thing going right now, they just came out, as a study just came out this week, was released, that for depression, they found out that treats depression just as good as antidepressants is Botox. So the next greatest thing right now in your communities, in our communities, is they're going to push Botox, probably on the military. Everybody's going to get, and so that's the latest thing going for mental health. When we sit here with essentially a gold mine in the fact that when people get underneath our adjustments, they get on our tables, their mental and emotional health improve. And chances are they put it up. They don't even make the connection. They chalk it up to a coincidence, right? Yeah. When we know the connection. And if we don't take the time to tell them, again, they're going to assume it was because they started eating a banana or they started, whatever, right? That's where it's saying you could add value to your practice today.
Man, I love this, Dan. And because chiropractors have known that we've influenced the entire nervous system, the brain, spinal cord, and nerves for a long time, but we've not been communicating that message well. And so, as we wind down and as we close, I know we're in the middle of a training or sometimes called a launch that you're doing called All About the Brain. And if you will, take a second and tell our listeners about this program, about this training. I will have a link to it if it's available by the time of this recording is released. I'll have a link in the show notes, or I'll have a link below this video. But if you will, share with us about this and tell us what's going on in your world.
Yeah. So I to kind of all this accumulated when I was out speaking to enough docs saying, I like the research, I get it, I think it's beautiful, and it helps me more certain. But how do I actually communicate that? How do I take this somewhat big picture and take it down to the person as I'm doing a talk at the Rotary Club, or I'm at a dinner, or I'm at my office doing a report? How do I make it tangible to them and the research useful? And so I racked my brain because I was like, you know what, they're right. Like, how can I better help them do that? And so that is this 10-month process. It was like building a house that I ended up coming down with this brain, and I combined two things. One, what Heidi and I's conversation about put the brain in their hands, but two, dating back to what Reggie Gold used to use, which Reggie Gold used to use the rheostat, where he would show subluxation light on, adjustment light on, subluxation dims your life or your light. He would show that with just a light bulb dimming. And so I combined the two, and I use this all the time. So so light, right? So boom, light off, right? So what I made is this thing. Now I added a couple things to it. One, there's 7 different layers of brightness. That was an important part, so that people understand, patients that is, understand that one adjustment doesn't fix everything, right? It's and by the way, it's movable, right? So you're going to be able to move it so that you can. So just to orientate our listeners, in case you're listening to the podcast and not watching, Dan is actually holding a really neat model that actually lights up. It's a brain model. Tell us about what you're holding there. Okay, yeah, that's good. You mean you listeners can't see that? Right? I didn't know they're a podcast too. So it's a model. Essentially, is a brain model. So I got a brain model, and I won't necessarily play with it now that I'm talking to. But essentially, it's a model that if it's mobile, it's got a brain on top of a spine, right? A cervical spine, and on top of is a brain, and the brain has lights in it, LED lights. Mm-hmm. And the lights light up, and there's 7 different layers of dimness, so that you could take a patient and you could show them what a subluxation looks like, because it's movable, so you can have certainty that they see that. Then there's a light with 7 layers that you can dim the light as you're showing a subluxation, so they could see and connect, and their perceptions change on, okay, so I see subluxation, brain, right? And it's lit up particularly in the brain, and then it dims in the brain, and then you can show them adjustment in a brain. It's all movable. So again, they tie and they change their perception. Again, here's my thing. This isn't a complete answer to all our problems, right, in relaying this message. But what it is to me, it's a step in the right direction for them to actually connect the brain, and then to see what a subluxation is, and then to see that this is a long-term increased compliance. So they're seeing every adjustment builds on the next, and ultimately it's for a healthier and more, bright brain.
Love it. And I'll have the video and also the podcast available for everyone. So audio and video. But so this obviously the model that you're using there is available, and then there's also training on how to use that.
Yeah, so I put together this package, program essentially where you get the model, and then there's 2 modules with it. One of the modules covers, really the first module is all the research, and I go into depth of some of the how-tos. Second one is actually has 17 short videos of me doing it in different scenarios, how I utilize it in a day one, how I utilize it from day to day, how to utilize it in retention report, how I use it in a report of findings, how I use it in my favorite, which is a re-exam, because that gets that compliance to show them everything built in the next, and it's a process, as well as video marketing, screenings, and dinners and talks. So, and then there's 2 new posters I actually created with it. One of the things that got me about posters, I couldn't find a poster out there that showed the subtlety of a subluxation, right? You got these big things that shows like how extreme, like subluxation, pinching on these nerves. I'm not saying it's bad, but I wanted something to where a mom could come in and say, I could see how my child has that. Because when we talk about subluxation and pinching and big bones moving out of place, it's hard for them to perceive, wow, my 1-year-old or 2-year-old has that. So I wanted a poster that would help tie that together and say it's subtle, it's in kids, it affects the autonomic system, but it also affects the brain. So I got 2 new posters to help docs explain that. Would you rather a background brain problem, and kind of the science behind that. So
that's awesome, man. And that's so cool, because in chiropractic, it seems like the physical, tangible, what do you call it? Not kinesthetic. Yeah. The kinesthetic demonstration has kind of gone to the side, when just 20, 30 years ago, maybe even, 50 years ago, they used so much of that to explain. And
to that point, Tabor, let me, and I'll kind of close with this one, because this is, we talk about perception. There was a study they did, it was a book called Brain Rules, and they took 54 wine connoisseurs. I'm not a wine connoisseur, but apparently here's the thing, that if you're explaining and describing a white wine compared to a red wine, you use completely different vocabulary, not even the same words, right? And category of words for that matter. And so what they did is they took 54 wine connoisseurs at this wine show, they put them in a room, and they dropped tasteless, odorless color, food dye, into the white wine. So essentially they made the white wine appear to be red wine by its look, right? And every single one of the connoisseurs, all 54, described that white wine, which had red food coloring in it and appeared to be red, but it was white. They described that white wine as red. They used the vocabulary of red. And what they say is that we do not perceive the world with all our senses equally.
Right.
We perceive the world with that our vision is 10 times stronger than any other sense. So if you don't have, and this is why showing somebody an X-ray is huge, because they get to hide themselves. And that's, again, to your point, kinesthetic, and being able for them to see our vision is 10 times stronger. If you're not utilizing vision, then you're missing out, because that's the same with the scans, right? Another study was Stanford showed a study that this when we talk about value for your care. You want to get more value for your care. You want people paying more for your care. There was a study at another wine study of all things, but they took 11 graduate students at Stanford, and they had 2 bottles of wine. One was $90 and one was $10. That was the actual value, right? They flip-flopped the price tag. So on the $10 bottle of wine, they're at a $90 price tag. They put them in a room. They showed the experiences with both of them, and the perception was everything. Every one of them said I had a better time. It tasted better, and everything around the $10 bottle of wine that they thought was 90 was better. So the point is, perceived value is always key to actual value. So for us, we've got to sell the perceived value. But when they're they don't have all the results that they're going to have 6 months later in that first, report of findings, that they're going to make their payment, right? And they're going to make their decision if they're going to put their money, their value there. So when you start to change the conversation to a brain, they immediately have more value for that. Like you're putting a $90 on a $10 bottle of wine, boom, now their experience with that, their value behind it, and their willingness to, again, pull out the money. But so that's the stuff that I get into, and I think is important for us as a profession.
Awesome. Well, Dan, just want to thank you for being on the show today. Obviously, you brought a lot of value today, and I think we've all learned that, it not only increases our value, but it's going to grow your practice when you start transforming that message from even the spine and nervous system, because a lot of docs that listen today probably aren't just all back pain. They do talk function, they talk spine, they talk nervous system, but being able to even take that to another level and talk about how the new research is showing that it affects the brain. And that's why you need to make sure that every person in your family is checked for subluxation. So thanks so much, Dan, for being awesome, for being here today. Any closing remarks as we sign off?
No, I'll just say, chiropractors, you guys save lives. The most relevant healthcare provider in your town, and you do great work. And thank you, Tabor, for pouring into docs and being a leader. So Yeah, it's
Awesome.
great. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great day. Great episode. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll talk to you on the next one.